Nayak, or The Hero, released in 1966, is Satyajit Ray's second original screenplay after Kanchenjungha. Uttam Kumar, the original hero and star of Bengali cinema, was the protagonist. Ray faced criticism from some quarters for selling out and using a saleable matinee idol. The plot goes something like this. When Arindam Mukherjee, the heartthrob of Bengali cinema, boards an overnight train to Delhi to accept an award, he meets Aditi, a journalist who approaches him for an interview. The conversation leads the actor to introspect and examine his actions over the years. The other characters traveling on the train are a microcosm of the then Bengali Bhadralok society. Screenwriting guru Robert McKee says that the dream sequence is exposition in a ball gown. Feeble efforts to disguise information in Freudian cliches. Ray was also told off by some critics for extensively using flashbacks and dream sequences in the film. But some stories, like the current one, has to delve into the past life and inner self of the character in order to point out the events that shaped his personality. And so I feel Ray was fully justified. Here we will try to deconstruct the two dream sequences in the film through Freudian lens. In his book, The Interpretation of Dreams, Freud said that all dream elements are symbolic and their private meaning can only be discovered through the dreamer's associations. According to him, dreams have two sources for their construction. The first source is happenings from the distant past, and the second source is events from the recent past or current ongoing events. Freud said that the actual dream as remembered, or what we see on the screen, is the manifest content. And the underlying dream thoughts that make up the dream is the latent content. In film analysis, interpretation of the latent content involves finding meaning of the scene and deciphering its underlying thoughts. If we look into Ray's red Kheror Khata, a traditional red cloth-bound notebook, we can see that he kept meticulous and exhaustive notes in the form of writings, sketches, musical notes, and storyboards as a guide throughout the making of the film, as well as during post-production. You'll see that the writings in his red notebook may not match the actual scene in many instances, since they are his first thoughts. But the basic idea remains the same. Since I had difficulty deciphering his handwriting, I guessed some words looking at the context, but I may have gotten it wrong. Also, I couldn't figure out certain words at all and substituted them with words that made the sentence meaningful, at least to me. So I apologize in advance. Let's now look at the transcripts of the first dream sequence from Ray's Kheror Khata, which takes place after about 35 minutes into the film. He writes, and I quote, "We are in his dream now. There's a vast stretch of landscape covered with currency notes and silver coins. An occasional breeze sends ripples over the money. The hero is walking over the notes and silver. His footfalls make a strange noise. The hero looks around happy and elated that the whole world of money belongs to him. He bends over a mound of money, looks around with content happiness, the monarch of all he surveys. A mound of money appears in the forefront. The sunlight goes out of his face. Storm envelops the whole landscape. Sticking out of the top of the mound is a skeleton arm. The hero stops dead, looking at the arm. Hero can now spot upraised skeleton arms sticking out of the money all around him. He continues walking, gently breathing in gasps, fear in his eyes. Now suddenly there isn't another soul for miles around. Now the hero climbs down from the mound and continues to walk, turning around. He seems to be going down, sucked in by a quicksand of money. He struggles to emerge, but the quicksand is relentless. He throws about his arms, and then he reacts to something. We see a man approaching Orindam. The hero, who has now stretched out his right hand for the man to hold and pull him out of the pit. The money is now nearly up to his chest. The man stretches out his right hand towards the hero. As the hero is about to pull it, the man suddenly, cruelly, withdraws it, laughing silently. The hero makes a last severe struggle. Then he is completely sucked in the money. This is where the first dream ends. Freud identified 4 aspects of the dream work. Let's now begin our interpretation based on these. The first aspect is condensation, where many different ideas and concepts are represented within a single dream, like 2 images overlaid onto one another. The first dream is a condensation where Orindam's love for fame and money converges with the guilt of disregarding his dead mentor, Shankarda. His desire for fame and money manifests itself in little mountains of cash on which he walks gleefully. Suddenly, the atmosphere changes from happiness to eerie, signifying, and I quote, the Marxian plenitude of cash overtaken by Freudian echoes of guilt, as noted by Darius Cooper in his book, The Cinema of Satyajit Ray. The second Freudian aspect is displacement, which means a dream might seem to be about one thing, but the dream thoughts can show that it is really about something else. As the dream progresses, the mounds of cash trampled by Orindam seem like heaps of trash. The skeletal hands signify people from his past, like his childhood friend, labor leader Biresh, and the veteran out of work actor Mukundo Lahiri, who Orindam refused to help in order to satisfy his need for petty revenge. Symbolization is the third aspect mentioned by Freud. As the word suggests, certain objects symbolize the repressed ideas and explain the latent content of the dream. From mounds of cash sprout shrill ringing telephones, perched on skeletal hands, maybe signifying dead Shankarda's warning about the actor being a puppet in the hands of the filmmaker. The death chant of Bolohuri Horibol still connects Orindam to Shankarda, his father figure. The phantom figure of Shankarda with his flaking face withdraws his supportive hand at the last moment, symbolizing that even his guru is unable to save Orindam from doom. As Orindam succumbs to success, he sees himself collapsing into a quagmire of currency. The fourth Freudian dream aspect is called secondary revision, where during his final stage, all bizarre elements of the dream are recognized to make the dream comprehensible by filling up the gaps in the dream structure with shreds and patches. Though Orindam's dream is bizarre and surreal, the symbolism and narrative is not difficult to understand. It plays out like a theatre of the grotesque, reconciling conventionally conflicting concepts. The dream eventually becomes a nightmare, and Orindam wakes up in panic. We now move on to the second dream sequence, which appears after about 1.5 hours into the film and is based on incidents of the recent past. Let's now go back to Ray's Kheror Khata again and see how he has envisioned the second dream sequence. Again, he writes, and I quote, "It is transformed into a studio light mounted on wheels. We now see the hero in close-up. He stands before him. The light on his face increases in intensity as the studio light moves near him. An unidentified hand holds a meter in front of his face. As the sound intensity is achieved, the hand moves away. The light stays. Then a hollow, resonant voice cries out, 'Action!' The hero starts walking like in auto motion. There's a rustling noise as he moves, and now we see his feet in black and shiny evening shoes, stepping along an endless chalk line over dry leaves and undergrowth. The scene now appears to show a tropical jungle. Studio lights are placed all through it, illuminating some of the lush foliage and silhouetting others. Some of the lights are clamped on overhanging branches. On some of the tree trunks are posters advertising a film featuring Orindam and Promila, the two being shown in an act of embrace. About 20 yards ahead of the hero walks Promila. The hero is following her through the jungle which grows deeper. Suddenly, in the midst of the jungle appears a door, an isolated door, a distinguished flat-panelled affair with the insignia of an international club on it. Promila walks through the door and vanishes. The hero walks briskly inward, in through the doors, and is suddenly affronted with furnishings which signify a club lounge with a bar at one end. The setting is still the jungle, and there are no walls. There are silent groups of people. They talk, play cards, smoke and drink. The hero looks around for Promila over the chalk line, and then he opens his mouth and shouts, Promila! Promila! A dark-seated man emerges from nowhere and affronts the hero. আপনি আমার স্ত্রীকে খুঁজছেন? The hero says, স্ত্রী? কে স্ত্রী? The man answers, Promila Chaudhuri, আপনার নায়িকা? Hero says, আপনার স্ত্রী? Man, আপনি জানেন না? ন্যাকামো হচ্ছে? আপনি জানেন না কার সঙ্গে আপনি? The hero says, hold your. The hero sends out a punch which catches the man on the jaw and sends him reeling to the floor. Two other men spring from a table and attack the hero, hurling him down with blows. The same hollow, reverberating voice shouts, Cut! This is the end of the second dream, as Ray wrote it. Keeping in mind the four aspects of Freud, we identify condensation, which is a fusion of several ideas and concepts within a single dream. Many cues from earlier sequence and flashbacks converge into the dimly lit jungle of his dream, where Orindom wanders listlessly. The baritone voice of Mukundu Lahiri, the senior actor. Fading echo of workers shouting slogans, echoing cackle of his co-star Promila, with whom he had a strange nocturnal encounter. An enormous film banner, light meter on his face, cameras scattered along the path. The club where a scandalous brawl took place the night before. Everything comes together in the dream. The second aspect of displacement, which means a dream might seem to be about one thing, but could be about another thing altogether. In this, the jungle transforms into an outdoor location, to a club on the other side of the door. Similarly, the film crew transfigure into high society people enjoying leisurely. His co-actor, with whom he is now emotionally involved, is revealed to be a married woman. When it comes to the fairer sex, his weakness is evident. He is not able to look past the deceit of a pretty face. In symbolization, certain objects symbolize the repressed ideas and explain the latent content of the dream. The chalk line, the outdoor jungle with cameras and lights, the figure of Orindom against the magnified image of himself in an oversized film poster, the thick layer of makeup on his face, the scattered fragments associated with film sets, all represent the fact that Orindom's real and real life has converged at some point, leading to a growing anxiety and unease regarding his star persona. The door in the middle of nowhere signifies a world alien to him, where faces in shadows hide behind dark glasses, just like the hero does in real life. Despite his fame, he remains a stranger amongst the upper classes of society. Finally, secondary revision. In this final stage, where the bizarre elements of the dream are recognized to make the dream comprehensible. This dream is a reflection of the brawl that happened the night before and found its way into the newspaper. Because of his background and middle-class values, it weighs heavily on Orindom's conscience. His middle-class morality does not allow him to have an adulterous relationship with his co-star, even though she lied about her marital status. The moral compass of the upper class, however, is flexible to a certain point. The husband, despite knowing about his wife's extramarital affair, seems to be nonchalantly playing cards. It is only when Orindom comes looking for her, calling out her name loudly, that the husband feels threatened. The fact that he was being cuckolded will now be out in the open, and that is not acceptable to him and his types. He insults and reproaches Arindam, calls him a scoundrel, and gets punched in the face, forcing Arindam to relive the unsettling realization that occurred to him the night before. And that, my friends, is a humble deconstruction of the two dream sequences of Satyajit Ray's Nayak. Thank you very much for listening.